This is Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and you're listening to the Paranormal Zone.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen. It does happen.
A ghostly apparition in the dark of night.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Hey there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Paranormal Zone, your weekly dose of all things, you guessed it, paranormal, strange, and mysterious. And this week it is guest interview time. We just had the honor and privilege of speaking with one of the best known names in the paranormal field. We are talking about internationally known psychic medium Cindy Kaza. You, of course, know Cindy from her recurring appearances on hit paranormal programming such as The Ghosts of Devil's Perch, The Holzer Files, and most recently her recurring featured role on the Smash Paranormal program, The Dead Files. Cindy opens up about some of her own paranormal experiences, discusses some common misconceptions of psychics and mediums, as well as her channeling of spirit art, and so much more. Again, it was an honor and a joy to speak with the wonderful, the talented, the humorous, and the fun Cindy Kaza. We hope you enjoy. I have my professional notes, as I usually do, my sloppily written notes here to help guide through.
I think yours look better than mine this time.
Do they? Okay, well, good.
They do.
That's
but as
something.
long as we can read them, that's all that matters.
Now, Cindy, one question that we got almost immediately from one of our listeners when I tweeted the other day that we were going to be chatting with you, she wanted to know about, as do Mike and I, because we have a shared passion with you when it comes to artwork and art. And you specialize... Yeah, absolutely. You specialize in spirit arts. And I was curious, and I was hoping that you would kind of talk to us about that, how that started, what it all means to you, maybe some methods that you use to create your arts, and we will listen with open ears.
Yeah, it's super crazy how it all kind of happened because I in no way am a trained artist. I've never, taken art classes other than the classes you take in like elementary school and high school. And so it really wasn't on my radar. What happened was I started doing automatic writing. I think it was in 2007 or 2008, right around that time. And, there was this moment after I've been doing automatic writing where I felt this urge to try drawing. And I was like, okay. And so I tried drawing, and then these faces started appearing, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I, moved to acrylics. And so I was kind of like exploring different, mediums, and no pun intended. And then I really found that I really love working with oil, pastel, charcoal. And because for me, it's more even charcoal initially because it's forgiving. So like I can move my hand really quickly, and I can smudge moving my hand, and the faces start appearing, right? And what's interesting about it is I have to finish the drawing as I'm sitting there, because if I walk away from the drawing and try to go back to it, a new face comes out. So it's like it's I've tried to step away from drawing a spirit and do it the next day, and I can't actually like bring back the same spirit. It actually turns into a whole new face. So it's really, I still am learning about my ability as a spirit. I mean, I call myself spirit artist, whatever that means. It's the only way I really know. Channeled art. I channel my art, right? And I found that, a lot of times I'm channeling people's spirit guides, which is what I started doing, where people come to me and say, can I have a spirit guide drawing? And I would channel the spirit guide. And then as I was drawing it, information would start to come through about who the person was, why they're there. And then as I started filming paranormal television, I was like, maybe I should try this on TV. And I was really kind of nervous because I don't know. I'm not a trained artist, right? It's like, who knows what's going to happen? I have no idea. And so it's, I've slowly but surely kind of been bringing spirit art to TV, me doing it on TV. But it's one of those things where I feel like it's always kind of evolving, and I'm still learning about myself in that process and how it works for me. And there will be periods of time where I won't really feel pulled to do spirit art, and then I feel pulled to do it, and I'm doing a lot of it. So I don't know. It's interesting, but I do have this dream. Like, I'm like, oh, it'd be so great one day to like be retired. Although I'll probably never retire because I love my job. But to like, let's say I'm retired, living somewhere where I could just create art all day and like and just really kind of sit with that, because I don't know, it's really fun. So yeah, that's what I got for spirit art.
It's fun and therapeutic.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, have you ever had a moment like when you were channeling, this creative energy is coming through you, and have you ever had a moment where you've stepped back and looked at what you just created and kind of went like, wow, like, I guess what I'm kind of asking is like, are you aware of what you're doing when you are channeling this energy to create the art, or is it kind of like revealed to you at, towards the end?
It's like both, right? Because I'm still present, but I just let my hand move. So it's not like my eyes are closed or I'm blindfolded and I can't see anything. But it's like this process of I'm not really fully there, if that makes sense. But I'm still there enough to see what's happening. But and sometimes no,
I
that's okay.
was just going to say, just kind of letting it happen as it comes and see what comes out.
Right. And then sometimes I'll draw a picture and I'll be like, this is awful. And then I turn it upside down. I'm like, holy crap, there's the face. Like, that's when it gets weird.
Okay.
It's like, wait a minute, like that,
that's cool.
Or like there's weird things that happen like that. And sometimes I'm drawing and I totally believe in aliens, like 100%.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like I would say that, on average, I communicate with humans way, way more than I communicate with aliens. But like, I'll tell you, one time one of my friends was like, do a spirit guide drawing for me. And I started drawing and drawing. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I just let my hand move and I was like, oh my God, holy shit, it's an alien. I was like, you're an alien, And so, I mean, that was cool because those, that's not something that I like. It's like, that's the last thing I thought was going to come out. So, I mean, it's really interesting. And just to kind of add on to the question of like, are you aware of what's happening? Tying into that, it's kind of similar with mediumship, because the way that mediumship works, really, unless you're a trance medium. So a lot of people have probably seen Holzer Files, right? In the intro of Holzer Files, they're the voices of the trance mediums that Hans Holzer worked with. So trance mediums, really deep trance mediums, they don't usually remember what's happened. They might remember bits and pieces, but a lot of them are kind of out, right? But most of us, like most people that aren't trance mediums, we're aware of what's happening, but we have to step outside of ourselves just enough to let the information in. But we have to also be lucid enough to explain what it is that we're experiencing. So it's this like interesting dance between going outside of yourself, coming back in, going outside of yourself, coming back in. And it's like kind of similar with spirit art. Although I'll say with like automatic writing and spirit art, I'm more out than I am in. I'm way more out. So that's why in investigations, I like to do automatic writing. It's because the channel to me is a lot clearer because I'm not filtering through imagery. I'm not filtering through feelings. I'm not filtering as much through, I guess, like, or having to interpret things as much. It just is. It's just coming out. So that's why I have all these kind of like different tools in my toolbox, because they're all useful in different ways during paranormal investigations.
That's fascinating. Do you ever feel drained afterward? It might seem like a silly question, but I was curious.
No, it's a great question. Look, I think the answer might be a little bit different than what people think. When I'm doing investigations, usually at the end, I have actually a lot of energy. When I'm doing live events, so another thing that I've been doing for a long time is it's called platform mediumship. That's what spiritualists call it. I've been trained with the spiritualist church. I'm not a spiritualist, but now I'm going on a tangent. But the point is, it's called
Hey, that's
platform
fine. That's fine.
medium. Sorry, it's my ADD. I can't help myself. But it's it's like when I get on the stage and I bring through people's loved ones who have passed away, right? So that's called platform mediumship. And I do these events, and they're typically 90 minutes to 2 hours long. And people always ask me, like, aren't you exhausted? And my answer is 99% of the time, at the end, I have so much energy. I'm super energized. And then 2 hours later, forget about it. I'm toast, right? It's kind of similar with paranormal investigations because you're outside of yourself. It's almost like you can't, it's not this dramatic, but it's almost like you don't really feel your body the same way. Like, what's a good example? So I had the flu really bad. This was probably, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago now, like really, really bad influenza, right? And I had a live event with like 350 people. And I was like, I can't cancel this event. I can't cancel. I have to work.
Right.
And I was like, but I don't know how I'm going to get on the stage and work because I can't stop coughing. I couldn't, like, it was brutal. And what happened was I got on stage. I didn't cough for 90 minutes when I was working. I had 0 symptoms of influenza.
Really?
The second I stopped, it came right back.
Wow.
Now that's
It's
crazy. Now,
It is crazy.
do you have like any?
Yeah.
Do you have any explanation for that?
I mean, it's just that when you're in mediumship, you're outside of yourself. It's like you're a little bit out of your body, so you're not
Sure.
like recognizing the same sensations of your body.
That makes sense. Wow, that's also it's
Steve Ship,
mind blowing when you
Steve
think
Shippey.
about it.
No, it is. It's weird. So I filmed the shock doc with Steve Shippey. We filmed a few, but it was Michigan Hell House, right? We filmed the shock doc called Michigan Hell House,
Yes.
and it was freezing. It was bitter cold out. It was like it was brutal, and I had this outside scene, and I was channeling something outside, and I must have been out there. I mean, I don't know how long we were filming this scene. And I was out there, and then the second I stopped working, I was like, oh my God, I'm so cold. And everybody was looking at me like, we don't know how you just stayed out here that long. Like, but I couldn't feel how cold I was because I was talking to spirits. So it's just like, it's wild. I mean, I would love to hook my brain up to a machine someday, like a scientist, have them hook it up and see what's going on there. Because they're, Buddhist monks have been hooked up to machines. I think there's a Harvard study where they were in deep meditation. Don't quote me on this, but it's something like they were able to, control their body temperatures and heart rates and things like that, So, yeah.
Man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, you have mentioned a couple times.
Am I nerding out?
Oh gosh,
I
no!
was gonna say, am I nerding out too much for you guys?
Absolutely
Patrick does that.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need any help nerding out. I'm great at it, so it's all good. It's all good. No, you've mentioned a couple times the phrase or the term, spirit guide. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you interpret that, how you would describe, like you're sitting down, you're performing, Cindy 101 to someone who wants to learn. Tell me what a spirit guide is. Kind of walk us through your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think we all have spirit guides. I think everybody has more than one spirit guide. We have multiple spirit guides that come and go throughout our lives as well. And to me, a spirit guide is, somebody or something in another realm that is there to guide us in life. And they're kind of like watching out for us, but they can't always intervene. It's kind of like, they're probably most of the time looking at us like, are you freaking serious? You're doing that again? Stuff like that. But
didn't you learn from your last mistake? I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, no, right. But they're there, right? And I do believe that spirit guides, I think that, look, I believe in all like aliens and all those things too, but I think, and I do think they can be guides for people. but a lot of people, identify their spirit guides as humans who had once walked the earth that are no longer here, that hold some sort of wisdom or knowledge that is useful for whatever we're going through in this life, right? And it's funny to me because people always want to have these really magnificent spirit guides, like, oh yeah, Cleopatra is my spirit guide or whatever, right? They have to be these like really famous or magnificent, like beings, although everybody's magnificent, so let me just say that. But it's like, maybe you're a mom in this life that has 10 kids. Do you want Cleopatra to be your spirit guide, or do you want somebody who also had 10 kids to be your spirit guide, right?
Great point.
And so,
great question. Yeah.
So it's like I want people to think about those things. Like, it's funny, sometimes I'll do a spirit guide drawing and I think people are like, oh, that's my guide. I'm like, yeah, your guide's a badass, but they were hoping for something. I don't know what they were hoping for, but something like that, like Joan of Arc or
something that's maybe more, easier for them to digest perhaps, or something that they could accept easier, if that makes sense.
I think so. Or just, I think people, and it's interesting, the way people relate to, fame and these, prominent figures. And it's like, we're kind of socialized to put these types of people into more of like I don't mean a god, but like a godlike status. Like, it's the relationship that people have with people that are famous is really interesting. And they forget guides that have way more wisdom and knowledge, in the areas that they need. So it's just food for thought,
Do you feel like family members that have passed on could actually be your spirit guide, or like, I'd love to have my father be my spirit guide. Is that something that you think could be a possibility?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I believe that too. I just,
100%. Yes, I totally believe that. And, I also believe that different guides, I believe we have, at least one guide that follows us throughout our entire lives. And I believe also that there are other guides that kind of come in and go as needed, like depending on what we're to my guides through automatic writing. And I'll ask them questions like, well, what about this? Like, what do I do? And they won't tell me all the answers. I'm like, what's the point of having a guide if you're not going to tell me all the answers? But they literally are like, you can't have all the answers. You can't know that right now.
You won't learn that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Awesome.
I've got I know we have a limited amount of time. I'm just, again, going through my ultra professional notes, Cindy. I want to throw out as much as I can here.
There he goes.
There's that. He's back. He's
Did
back.
I freeze up again? Oh my goodness gracious.
You're back. You're back.
We could go for months without having this happen, then all of a sudden it'll happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Because
exactly.
it's a medium. I'm a medium. And
that's right.
Things are weird.
That's funny that
Things
you
get
said that.
crazy and great.
It's funny that you said that, Cindy, because years ago. Now I'm going to go off on a quick tangent here. Years ago, it was my fiance and I are the ones who started this podcast. And Mike has kind of helped me, continue on, further and further down the road. And we just love talking to awesome guests like you. But one of our guests way back in the day was Andrea Perrin, and she.
I love her.
She was
God,
so great.
her.
She was so great, and we mentioned the exact same thing. I had to knock on wood. I'm going to knock on anything I have around here. And she mentioned that things. I'm going to warn you. Things happen when I'm talking to people online like this, like doing these meetings and stuff. So your reception, your connection might be, pristine. But then the moment we start talking, weird stuff's going to happen. And guess what? Weird stuff started to happen. We had terrible connection. It eventually fixed itself, and it was a fantastic conversation. But she was like, I warned you. So I blame you, Cindy.
Yeah.
I'm blaming you 100%.
I love her. I was just on a cruise with her in Alaska. I did a Strange Escapes event with Amy Bruni, and I've got to tell you, I love Andrea. She's awesome.
Speaking of Amy Bruni, we talked to her too, and awesome people to talk to.
So many awesome people.
Me and
in this
Adam,
field.
Chip, wonderful people.
Oh, I love all of them. Like, I'm fans
So
of
do
all
we.
of them. Yeah.
When you mentioned Chip Coffey, Mike, that brought up another question of mine. What do you think are some of the common misconceptions, Cindy, when it comes, like when the layperson walking down the street, or a skeptic, or what I call a pseudo skeptic, even though Dave Schrader argues with me about the legitimacy of that term, which is funny.
He froze on. There he goes.
No, that's great. I'm freezing. I'm telling you. Well, I was saying that I as far as like misconceptions of psychic mediums, to the lay person, and I attempted the joke before I froze up that sometimes we call them not skeptics but pseudo skeptics, and Dave Schrader always argues back with me because he says like that's not even a term. They're called cynics. I'm like, hey, come on, just give me the. I'm going to stick with pseudo skeptic. But what are some common misconceptions when it comes to describing yourself as a psychic medium?
Okay, well, first, let me tell you the difference between, because a lot of people don't know the difference between what a psychic is and what a medium is. So psychics pick up on past, present, and future. Mediums communicate with things in other realms. I say things because I believe more than just human souls. So let's say things in other realms, right? So, every human being is psychic. That's the reality of it. In our culture, that's socially acceptable. But it's not any different than saying I should have trusted my intuition or I should have trusted my psychic sense. It's the same thing, right? And so, just to kind of clarify that. Now, when I call myself a psychic medium, it's kind of redundant because mediums are also psychic, right? But I always say, some mediums are less psychic, and some psychics are like that's their thing. They're just like really, really psychic. They don't necessarily tap into spirit, but as much. But I think everybody has the ability to feel the presence of the spirit world as well. So I say everyone can play the piano. Not everybody is going to be a concert pianist, right? So we all come into the world with this innate ability to feel these energies, and we're told from a young age that either it's evil or we shouldn't talk about it or it's not real or whatever. We know the story, right?
Yep.
But a misconception is, for me at least, I can't make a blanket statement because it might be different for another medium, but people think I'm constantly reading everybody all the time, or I'm constantly talking to dead people, or I have no control over it. Thank God that's not true because it'd be very hard to function in this world and be grounded. I very much feel as if I can control my ability. So I describe it like this. If you can imagine a radio plugged into an outlet, but the volume is turned all the way down to zero, there's still an underlying current going through. But now I can control how high I turn up the volume, right? And people sit down with me at dinner sometimes and they're like intimidated. They're like, are you reading me? I'm like, please, like, I don't want to be in your head. I have enough going on in my own brain. Like, I just want to eat my dinner, So
exactly. It's like I just want to eat. Yeah.
I think another one is that people think we should know everything. Like how could we get any of it wrong or misinterpret anything? And that's also a misconception. It's like I describe mediumship kind of like playing a game of Pictionary, charades, and telephone all at the same time. So like, for example, one spirit, like the same spirit, might give me 5 different pieces of evidence 5 different ways. And it's my job to figure out what the heck is this person trying to show me. Sometimes it's super clear. Sometimes it's like, okay, now I see a fire truck. Now I feel a heart attack. Now I hear the name John. It's like, did John die of a heart attack in a fire, or was John a fireman who died of a heart attack? Right? So you have to like feel into all that different stuff. And people will it's just the jokes of like, oh, I just called you, but I bet you saw that coming. You probably knew I was going to call you. It's like, no, I actually didn't, but it's just, it's like shit like that. It's like, but it's okay, because I think what's happening, honestly, it's not even the people that it's more that like people don't understand how it works. So they're coming at the topic from, a very limited perspective. And it's, because when you watch mediumship in Hollywood movies, like The Sixth Sense, I use that movie a lot because honestly, it's a great movie. It got a lot of things right. Really cool movie. but I don't know really very many mediums that can't tell the difference between somebody who's alive or dead all the time. And I don't know very many mediums, and some are like this, but not very many, who sit across from a spirit, look like I'm looking at you, and the spirit is communicating as directly as I'm communicating with you, where there's no room for kind of like misinterpretation. Sometimes it is that clear, but it's a lot of times we're having to kind of like sense, feel, hear, see, and try to make sense of it all. So yeah.
You know, you mentioned The Sixth Sense, and on a personal note, that movie was spoiled for me 20 some years ago. I never got to see the cool twist at the end because I knew it was coming. It's like, oh no.
Oh, that sucks. That's the worst, because that's the best part. You're
exactly.
like,
it was just casually mentioned over a dinner at like a relative's house, and I was like, hello.
That's so mean. It ruined the whole movie. Damn it.
I know. Oh, what can you? It's still a good movie. I mean, it's still great to watch. So.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I had seen that you had been described as an evidential medium as well.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. How does that?
You know, it's like I need to take that off of my title. Okay, so here's the thing. The reason that it was on there, and this is why, is because I did my training as a medium with the Spiritualist Church. And so it's a very specific type of mediumship training. Spiritualism is right. It's a spiritualism is a religion. It's an organized religion. I think personally, best mediumship training in the world. I studied at the Arthur Findlay College of Intuitive Sciences in Stansted, England. It's not like a real college where you go for like a semester, like multiple semesters. You go and take, multiple classes. And I went there back and forth for about 5 years, sometimes twice a year. Actually, yeah, for about 3 years, I was going 2 times a year, sometimes 3. And so when you are trained with the Spiritualist Church, you are called an evidential medium.
Okay.
So it's a way for one evidential medium to recognize a medium with the same type of training. So if I see that in front of somebody else's title, like their name, I know that they have the same training as me. And it's if you see like because it seems like kind of like why is she calling herself an evidential medium? She better be evidential if she's doing this job, right? But it's like if you see people with that type of training work, you'll be able to recognize it and you'll be able to see it. Like even my husband now, he's like, oh my gosh, I get it, because he's seen me work with other mediums. He's like, I get it. You all have the same kind of training. So that's what it is.
Ah, good,
awesome. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, we were both curious about that as well. Cindy, we had a lot to pack in here before we run out of time. I know you've shared this story several times, and I'm sure it never gets old, though. And we would love if you would share with our listeners your first experience with the spirit. When I was looking at your information and prepping for the podcast here, it mentions that you had your first spirit encounter at the age of 10. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I was 10, and this is actually, let me just start this by saying, and I shared this with you before we, started recording, but
yeah,
my brother passed away last year. And so I was just back in New Hampshire. I brought some flowers to the grave, and then we spread his ashes in the lake finally. And, but anyway, the girl who I saw when I was 10, her gravestone is really close to my family's plot. So I actually went by it to kind of say hi to her. We took a picture of it. It's like really close. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's her grave. There's Amber's grave. So there's this girl that I went to elementary school with who was unfortunately killed in a car accident. She was hit by a drunk driver. And so after she died, I was sleeping at my Nana's house, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw her standing directly next to my bed, like full body apparition.
Wow.
And I pulled the covers over my head and I pulled them back down, and she was still there. And it was really scary because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't, grew up in a religious family, Catholics everywhere, then some born agains. Like, we don't talk about this stuff. Like, it's not like, you don't talk about I see dead people. Right.
Right.
And honestly, as a 10-year-old, I didn't even know what was happening. But I never forgot that experience because it was so vivid and it was so real, because it was real, right? But it took me until, like later in life, to when I started really accepting that this was something that was happening to me and I had this ability. I looked back and I said that she was visiting me. That was my first experience I can remember. So it was really interesting to like, to put all the pieces together and to make sense of all of these, experiences that I was having as a kid, as a teenager, young adult, of like knowing when things were going to happen before they did, the psychic part, the premonitions, feeling spirits, being able to read people very well, knowing things about people that I shouldn't have known, and yeah, so I mean, it was a really scary experience. It took me a while to put it all together, and I met my first mentor when I was 19. Her name was Bonnie, and she was the first person who looked at me and said, "You're a psychic medium." And I was like, "What are you talking about, lady?" And then she started kind of like, teaching me these things about psychic stuff and mediumship, and I still at that time wasn't quite ready to accept it. And then I was, then there came a time that I was, and I didn't look back, but it was very much a process for me. It took a while.
That's incredible. That's definitely an experience that will live with you forever, obviously. Now, Cindy, we'd be remiss if we did not talk about the Dead Files. I mean, you are well known in the paranormal field, the paranormal television field. You've been seen on the Holzer Files, the Ghosts of Devil's Perch. You mentioned those shock docs earlier. I watched a clip earlier today about your interaction with Robert the Doll. I was absolutely fascinated by that. That was great.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Talk to us how you came about being a part of the awesome show, The Dead Files.
Yeah, so the Dead Files, like Amy was kind of, ready to take a break, and she reached out to me and it's like, "Hey, like, is this something you'd be interested in?" And then the production company reached out to me and the network approved it, and that's how it happened.
Wow. That's really amazing. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but thank you for saying that, because that is really cool that it was actually Amy who reached out to you initially. That's pretty cool.
I'd say they picked the right person. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it was really I really enjoyed filming this series. And I have to give so much credit to Amy, because she did 15 seasons of the show, like, and it's a super intense show. I mean, the cases are really dark, and you're like, it's not light.
That's probably a reason. I mean, there's a reason that Amy probably needed to step back. I don't want to speak for her, but I know that, like you said, this was a pretty heavy show. I'm sure it takes its toll after a while.
It is a heavy show. And I'll tell you though, the thing that I really, really loved about, making the show, there are a lot of things I loved about it. I love Steve, by the way. I love working with Steve. That guy, he's a great guy. He's like a big brother. That's how he feels, and,
an intimidating big brother.
Intimidating. Tough, yeah.
No, he's like a giant teddy bear. That's how I see him, But it's like you're going in and you're really trying to help these families. Like, they're really struggling, and they really need help, and to be able to go in and help them, that's really rewarding. Not that the other shows haven't been super fun, because they've all been really fun. But, this one's a little bit different insofar as, like, there's a family there that really needs help, and you're trying to help solve what's going on in the house and bring some closure. Whereas, like, some of the other shows, and they're all great. It's not a knock. They're just different. You're going to a location, you're seeing what you see, you're seeing if it matches up with history. But there's, like, not necessarily a family that you're there to, like, help, so sometimes. I mean, well, look, the shock docs, it's a little bit different, but anyway, so it's really, it's a great show. I really enjoyed being a part of it. I'm grateful to Amy for recommending me, and so I really give her a lot of credit, and she's a really, really talented, excellent medium, who's, been on TV for a long time. Did a great job.
We had, again, I hate to sound like I'm tooting our own horn, but we had the honor of speaking with Amy way back in like 2016 on this podcast, and it's still one of the highlights of our time on this show. So, like you said, she's quite the person, quite the individual.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Cindy, I knew this would fly by. It always does. We have the Dead Files premiering September 7th on the Travel Channel,
Oh, wait.
and then streaming
Hold up
on
1
Max.
second.
Yeah, please.
Hold up 1 second. So September 7th may not be the date now.
Oh, really?
I don't know if
Thank
it's
you.
because
Okay.
I don't know. So here's the thing. I was told it was the date. I promoted that date, and then I was told to not promote that date.
Okay,
and then
okay.
So
Check
hold
that.
date. I don't know. Check that. I don't really know. So
Well, it's
it'll
going to be
in
coming out.
September, though. It'll
Still to be determined, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be well worth the wait, too. We love the show.
Oh, absolutely.
We love watching you. It's been such a pleasure talking with you, Cindy. We need to do this again sometime, and I'll make sure to have a longer time limit set up so we can actually get to more and more questions. And maybe I'll go find my own private little fortress of solitude so my internet connection isn't so messed up half the time either.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very
anytime.
much.
I'd love to come back. Thank you. Yeah.
Now,
Thank
can you hold on for like 1 second? Thanks, Mike. This has been a blast, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Mike, until next time, what do our paranormal podcast friends need to do?
Peace out.